Alright, for today, it's how to loom knit a hat for beginners. Kitten edition. Hope you enjoy watching Ozzy being, well, a spotlight stealer, and add some style by wearing a cozy hat. Let's go ahead and get started. By now you should know that I am definitely the biggest yarn hoarder there is, but there's actually a special surprise I was supposed to announce in the beginning of the month. I am trying to start an Etsy, so this is the reason why I have so many woolly stick and quicks. I even ran out of so much space that I had to put my yarn inside my dresser. So that gives you an idea of my storage limitations. So anyway, what you need is obviously one ball of 5 to 6 bulky or super bulky yarn. It doesn't have to be this brand, although I would totally recommend this brand. It's not sponsored in this video, but I love this yarn so much for making hats. That's why it's obviously my choice for my Etsy shop. Just grab whatever you can as long as it's a 5 or 6 super bulky yarn, and let's get our other supplies together. You'll need your looming hook, crochet hook, yarn needle, and 41 peg loom. Go ahead and make your traditional slip knot and put it on that anchor peg, and oh my gosh, my dented board is so annoying. Anyway, just ignore that. Now it's time to do our cast on. So this is the same exact cast on, ironically, from my last video. So you're just going to E-wrap all of these pegs and create that first layer. And then when you get to your second row, you're just going to go over and do a U-wrap knit stitch. And then you continue on around the loom until you get to peg 41, which is the last peg before your anchor peg, marking your row. The U-wrap again is going over that first peg and bracing the yarn against the loom, then lifting that bottom loop up and over that peg, and your cast on will be complete at that point. Now it's time to work a ribbing. What's really funny is this pattern works almost exactly the same way as the other pattern I showed in my last video does. If you haven't seen it, it's okay. Basically, we're just going to do a normal U-wrap purl stitch combination. First, you're going to U-wrap the first peg. Again, that's just going around in a U shape, and then you're lifting that bottom loop over the top loop. But then on the second peg, going to purl it. Now for those of you who hate purling, you can substitute for a different stitch, but I personally think it's a great stitch for this pattern. Just go down there, grab that purl from the ocean and make a new loop, pop it off that peg and put it back on as that new stitch. Then for the third peg, you're going to U-wrap knit that stitch, and then you're going to purl the next one. Notice that on my loom, every other peg is marked from the second peg with tape. I couldn't find a really nice looking tape. All I could find was painter's tape, but you get the point. So if you want to remember where your stitches are, just put a piece of tape on every other stitch or a stitch marker. Personally, tape works really nicely because it just peels right off the plastic. So again, knit, purl, every single peg. Every other peg is going to be a knit, every other peg is going to be a purl. Now since this is an uneven loom, which means it only has 41 pegs, you aren't going to have an even amount of knits and purls because of this. So you might be confused when you get to the last two pegs because you're like, okay, well, this is going to change up my pattern the next time I go around the loom. So you actually need to purl the last two pegs. So that's why I typically will put 2 pieces of tape on the last 2 pegs. All you need to do is just purl the last 2 pegs because you don't want to start off the next pattern stitch with a purl because it won't match up on the ribbing. So make sure you're aware of that and always start with a U-wrap and then end with a purl, which means 2 purls. Go around for 2 inches all the way around the loom, knitting and purling until you have 2 inches of ribbing done, and that will be the brim of your hat.